Good afternoon. My name is Michael Ticknor. I serve on AJC's Executive Council and as chair of AJC's regional offices. 1 year ago, AJC's network of 22 regional offices across the country undertook an ambitious challenge, Mayors United Against Anti-Semitism. We crafted a pledge and spread the word to mayors across the United States, asking them to sign their name to this denunciation of anti-Semitism. We at AJC spent a lot of time thinking beyond our own borders. We worked to improve Israel's place in the world, halt Iran's progress towards nuclear weapons, defend human dignity, and combat anti-Semitism in Europe. But without our work at the local level, we would never be able to make such a significant impact worldwide. At AJC, we live by the belief, think global, act local. Forgive my chauvinism, but as with so many great things in American history, the story of Mayors United began in Massachusetts. When AJC New England conceptualized the project and teamed up with Newton Mayor Seti Warren to get the ball rolling. Given that Newton is the wonderful city where I was born and raised, it is a particular honor for me to introduce Seti Warren today and to pay tribute to his visionary and admired leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mayor Seti Warren to AJC Global Forum.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It is truly an honor to be with you today, and I'm deeply grateful to have the chance to work with a leading organization like AJC to address the insidious poison that is anti-Semitism. Over a year and a half ago, my friend Rob Likend, director of AJC Boston, and I were attending an event in Boston hosted by the UK consulate, where we talked about anti-Semitism around the world and the roles that mayors could play around the world in making their communities welcoming by stating community values. This is something we do as mayors every day. After discussing the possibility that snowy night in Boston, getting mayors to make a strong statement about how anti-Semitism is unacceptable, I never could have dreamed we would have over 300 mayors from all 50 states and the District of Columbia, representing 82 million people, and 150 mayors from 29 countries, representing nearly 60 million people, signed on. Thank you to Rob and AJC for your leadership. We know our work is not done at home or abroad. This September, in conjunction with AJC, we will convene mayors from around the world and Europe to codify our work and expand our initiative. At home in our cities, including my hometown of Newton, Massachusetts, we have work to do. Just recently, a report came out announcing an increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Newton recently was a victim to multiple incidents. I'm dealing with this swiftly by ensuring our police department is investigating criminal actions, giving much-needed training to our school administrators and police officers on how to properly respond to hate crimes, and have already put in motion education and engagement programming in our schools and in our community as a whole. So you see, our efforts must never end to eradicate our cities and towns of anti-Semitism and all forms of prejudice and racism. It takes constant work and leadership from community leaders. I'm looking forward to our important work together. As I said, and I want to say it one more time before I introduce my friend, Stephanie Rawlins-Blake, we have 300 mayors from 50 states, District of Columbia, 82 million Americans. Isn't that unbelievable? Signed on. We're going to do more. We're going to do more. And we have not been able to have done this without the help of my friend Stephanie Rawlins-Blake, President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, who help us spread the word and recruit more allies. It is my welcome to introduce a true champion to the stage, Mayor Stephanie Rawlins-Blake.
Thank you very much to my good friend, Mayor Warren. It's always great to see you, and it has been my pleasure to work with you during our time on the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And to Mr. Tigner, thank you for the invitation to be here with you today. It is my sincere pleasure to be here with all of you. As has been mentioned, a constant theme of AJC is act local, think global, which is not only appropriate for the organization, but it's really why I am standing here today. About a year ago, a constituent in Northwest Baltimore called his city council person, City Councilwoman Ricky Spector. The constituent is a member of the AJC and asked Ricky if she could reach out to me and see if I would sign on to a pledge of Mayors Against Anti-Semitism. Ricky, who is my mentor and who I've known for well over 20 years, since my first days on the city council, is never one to shy away, and she called me immediately. I took a look at the pledge, and I thought it was a very worthwhile initiative. I know that history can not only repeat itself, but also change into ugly forms. So I signed it without hesitation and submitted it. A couple of days later, I get a call from AJC. They needed help getting some of my fellow mayors from Maryland signed on to the pledge. And they asked me if I could assist. I said I can do one better. In addition to being the mayor of Baltimore, I also happen to be the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I told AJC that I could encourage my colleagues from around the country to sign this pledge. From that one constituent, making that one phone call to his city councilwoman, this initiative now counts over 300 mayors signing on, representing collectively over 80 million people in this country. You see, he thought globally by acting locally. And one of the things that I've learned by being president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors is that change comes from the bottom up, not from the top down. Whether it's confronting anti-Semitism or addressing climate change, the solution to the world's problems are not happening in our world's capitals. They're not even happening in state or provincial capitals, but rather happening in cities all over the globe. And as mayor, I'm not always considered a global policymaker. Some see my job as fairly parochial. I make sure the trash is picked up and the potholes are filled and the fires, both literally and proverbially, are put out. And yes, those things are my job. But I see my job as fundamentally deeper than that. My job at its core is to make sure that my community is better, that it's safer, that it's stronger. And if I can do that and my colleagues can do that, then what a difference we can make in our world. I commend the AJC on their 110-year history of advocacy, both locally and globally. And while my term as mayor is coming to a close, I hope that the partnership endures with mayors in support of that advocacy. I thank you again for allowing me to speak here today and inviting me to participate in this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Rawlings Blake, and thank you for all that you've done and will continue to do to place the issue of anti-Semitism on the agenda of mayors across the United States. As you know, the story of Mayors United did not end with the more than 300 mayors representing 82 million Americans from all 50 states in the District of Columbia. You keep hearing that statistic. It's a wonderful one. But that's because Mayor Anne Hidalgo of Paris took up the charge, and so did nearly 200 other mayors from more than 30 countries across Europe, representing over 65 million people. Today, this transatlantic pledge, AJC's Mayors United Against Anti-Semitism, has become arguably the largest, most far-reaching denunciation of anti-Semitism of its kind in history. We had almost 200 European mayors to choose from to invite here today, but for us, the choice was easy. On the eve of the Holocaust, the Jewish community of Thessaloniki, Greece, then a capital of Sephardic Jewish life, numbered 54,000. The city's docks were closed on Shabbat because so many of the stevedores were Sabbath observant. But it wouldn't last. When the Nazis arrived, Thessaloniki's Jewish community was utterly destroyed. More than 96% of the Jews of Thessaloniki were arrested, deported, and murdered by the Nazis, mostly in Auschwitz. But in 2014, as Mayor Yanis Boutaris was sworn in for his second term as mayor of Thessaloniki, he paid tribute to the rich and vibrant Jewish legacy of Thessaloniki, mourned its tragic end, and offered a rebuke to the resurgent anti-Semitism of today. He pinned a yellow Star of David to his jacket. The act was a living memorial to the Jews of Thessaloniki. It was also a complete rejection of the anti-Semitism of Greece's neo-Nazi Golden Dawn Party. For all of these reasons, plus AJC's long-standing and close ties to Greece and the Greek people, Mayor Boutaris was the natural choice to come today. In doing so, he represents the more than 65 million people from across Europe whose mayors have pledged to fight anti-Semitism. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming an individual of character and conviction, Mayor Yanis Boutaris.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm especially proud to be here among you, among the signatories to the statement of the mayors against anti-Semitism, a declaration issued as part of AGC's remarkable campaign to combat this particular cause of discrimination. I thus stand before you today as a representative of the cities of Europe to remember and honor together our preeminent co-citizens, our Jews. Jews are not only a people of the book, they are also a people of the city. Without them, the cities of Europe, our cities, could never become what they are, the laboratories of politics, arts, science, the cradles of modernity. What would Vienna be? What would Vienna be without Sigmund Freud? Amsterdam without Spinoza, Paris without Marcel Proust, Berlin without Moses Mendelssohn, and no less Rosa Luxemburg. My own city, Thessaloniki, enjoys a large presence of Jews dating back to the times of St. Paul. Thanks to this, it was born again and again. In particular, it was the ingenuity of its Sephardic Jews who, expelled from Spain in 1492, turned the poor settlement into a thriving Mediterranean port. Those Spanish Jews named their synagogues after the cities they were forced to leave, Sevilla, Aragon, Zaragoza, Toledo. But as time passed, they made Thessaloniki their new home, one that proudly and rightly called the Jerusalem of the Balkans, the mother of all Israel. Yet our cities are nurtured intolerance, prejudice, and ethnic hatred. The ghetto was invented in Venice. Modern anti-Semitism was born in Vienna. And the Holocaust was conceived in Berlin. European Jews symbolized urban decadence and were loathed, persecuted, and eventually exterminated for this. Today, almost every European city, from Paris to Krakow, is a city of ghosts, haunted by the absence of its most exemplary citizens. With their death, as part of our own self has died as well. The Holocaust stole our city's futures. Our Jews were so tied to their hometowns that wherever they moved, they cherished their memory. Bialystok was as much a presence in New York as it was back in Russia. The Jews of Thessaloniki established Thessalonican associations in Paris, New York, and Tel Aviv. And in Auschwitz, they drew courage, singing songs about Sweet Salonika, our other fatherland. For long, this Jewish urban memory lived in exile, as the past was systematically forgotten at home. Today, painfully aware of our own shameful neglect, we strive to make amends, to recover this past in order to create a better future. Considerable dangers, however, still lurk, particularly while we rightfully seek to highlight the injustice and discrimination of the past. Jewish communities in Europe could still become the scapegoats for supposedly provoking economic misery. We live in turbulent times, in times of a fragile social cohesion, which, exacerbated by striking wealth inequalities, could result to social upheavals. And when this happens, discrimination can surface once again. We always need to be vigilant and continue to fight ignorance with education. In addition, we need to address the underlying causes of social unrest. We should aim at a more inclusive, in every sense, society. We should also never forget the tormented lives of many of our Jewish brothers, but we should cherish their memory in the appropriate manner. In our consumeristic times, celebrating Jewish heritage in, say, Thessaloniki or Venice, can easily take the form of turning our cities into some sort of sentimentalized Jewish Disneylands. This should not necessarily be so. On the contrary, our duty of memory can become one of our best strategies for urban regeneration. This principle has guided my own mayorship and has brought me where I stand here today. Acknowledging our Jewish legacy, working together with Jewish and Gentile co-citizens, can help us make our cities more tolerant, more prosperous and more livable places for people of all walks of life. This is the challenge we face today, as we strive to cater for the living and also, finally, put the ghosts of our past at rest. And it is a challenge all of us here today are committed to rise up to. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mayor Boutaris, for your inspirational remarks. In this morning's Wall Street Journal, in the two-page centerfold of the first section, you will find a list of the 500-plus mayors who have signed AJC's Mayors United Against Anti-Semitism pledge. Take a close look. Is your mayor on the list? If he or she is, please write a letter or an email or a tweet. Let your mayor know that you are grateful and proud that your city stands with AJC against anti-Semitism. Is your mayor missing? Then please reach out. Ask her or him to sign. Together, we have the power to act. Together, we can stand up and fight back against the rising tide of anti-Semitism. In doing so, we affirm and strengthen our democratic and pluralistic values for all. Thank you, and thank you to three extraordinary mayors.